All right, all right, all right. Welcome to the PS I Love Me show. I am Olmiga and I'll be hosting this show today. This is brought to you by LMC Radio, where loyalty means everything, and of course, Olmiga Enterprises. I want to give a special shout out to everyone that is part of the LMC crew. They work together really hard to put this together. I want to be able to talk about a couple of things. We are connecting to the actual radio station right now. We're on Twitch. We're waiting to be connected. I don't know exactly what we're on. We are on Radio Time right now. We are on the FM channel, and we are, I believe, live. We are live right now. And we are recording. I am just waiting to see why I'm not able to get on the LMC Twitch station right now. I am trying to connect right now as we speak. We are connecting as we speak. I don't see why I wouldn't be on it, but nevertheless, failed to connect to the stream. Well, at this point, I'm going to have to continue and figure out exactly what's going on with the connection to the Twitch from the OBS. We are now recording and we are now streaming live on what we like to call, let's see, the YouTube channel. So nevertheless, let's start. I'm still trying to connect to the Twitch station. I don't know exactly what's going on with the connections, but nevertheless, like I said, if you can hear me on the FM radio station and you can hear me on the broadcast, let me know. So yes, I'm live right now, and I'd like to talk about a couple of things, starting with the word stubborn. But first, what I'd like to do is talk about what it takes to get to a stubborn mind. What does it take to become a full-fledged stubborn person? First, I'd like to visit something, and if you don't mind, I'd like to show you, what exactly ignorance is. And ignorance is just merely having little or no knowledge, not educated, not knowing. So basically, not ignoring. When you're ignorant about something, it's because you just don't know. It's because you don't understand exactly what's going on. You're just not familiar with a certain subject. You're not familiar with a certain thing. So this is why ignorant is used out of context, and it's a very negative word for some people. It pulls triggers to negative things, how it was utilized in the past. Just want to let you know that the word ignorant is because you're not familiar with something and you don't know something. So we'll move to the next word, which is stubborn. Being stubborn, having or showing dogged determination not to change one's attitude or position on something, especially in spite of good arguments or reasons to do so. So it gets to a point where a stubborn person won't even listen to reason. A stubborn person won't even listen to facts. A stubborn person won't listen to anything if they are set on their ways. I started writing the new podcast, Living Above the Norm. The new section that I'm talking about is growth. And removing yourself from a stubborn attitude is part of growth. Changing your ways, changing your position, allowing for a different perspective to come into your life is part of growth. And you have to understand that just like the many other words are used in a negative connotation, the word stubborn is also used primarily in a negative connotation. So there's a different side to stubborn. There's good things to stubborn, as well as there are difficult things to stubborn, but stubborn should be a choice. It shouldn't be a lifestyle, or it shouldn't be the way that you determine how to deliver communication how to react, what position to have. Sometimes it's better to stay on the fence because you don't know enough. Sometimes people feel very, very, very uncomfortable with changing the way that they look at things. So as I'm looking for what I'm writing, there are a couple of notes that I'd like to discuss. And it's very important that we discuss these things because, again, ignorance plays a tremendous role in not allowing yourself to look at things reasonably. You just saw what I just explained to you, and what I just displayed on the screen, which was talking about stubborn. Even if you have a good argument, it doesn't matter if you're 100% right. A stubborn person cannot. They cannot. It's not that they don't want to, because it's not a choice. They cannot look at anything outside of what they are stuck in. And they're stuck there because it's a comfort level. When you're comfortable, oh, I appreciate that. Thank you for the comment on the beard. Yeah, they say that they'll listen to you more if you grow a beard. So I guess the idea is to look like Moses so that people can look at you in a distinguished way. You know, appearances matter. They do. But it's when a person opens their mouth that you get to see the true character and their true knowledge. I appreciate that. So getting back into, like I said, I was writing chapter 7 of Live Above the Norm on this same channel here on YouTube. Obviously, I'm not on Twitch right now, but I am on the radio. So for all you that are listening, the LMC fans, we are here, I guess, on the radio, but I cannot stream to Twitch for some reason. So again, I'm continuing to do this straight through the YouTube channel. This is why I like to use different modalities. That way, if something goes wrong, we have a backup plan. So within the chapter that I was talking about growth is something that increases. Now, can something that goes down in weight or something that goes down in size be considered growth? Can eliminating something be considered growth? As a human, in order for you to grow, as much as you need to add certain things into your daily lives, into your thought process, there are a lot of things that you have to remove as well. So this is kind of contradicting, but understand what I'm trying to tell you. There's a possibility that if you're the type of person that the grass is always greener on the other side, you're going to annoy a lot of people. The difficulty with that is to continue to be that person. Continue to try to find light at the end of the tunnel. Continue to be the person to find the pleasantries and the positivities that are involved with every decision that we make, every reaction, every action, every word that is spoken. You have to be very conscious and aware of who's listening to you. And most importantly, you're listening to yourself. So if there's any self-direction needed, that's a good way to go. So what's the opposite of growth? The opposite of growth is destruction. The opposite of growth is shrinking in size. Now, in a mental aspect, when you talk about the opposite of growth, you regress. You go back to the past. You go back to your old habits. You have not achieved a sustainable consistency in order for you to say, yes, you have grown, but you're not maintaining the growth. You've achieved a certain type of growth, but you're not doing anything to maintain that growth, which is the most difficult part in almost everything that we do. When you lose the weight, it's not about losing the weight. Losing weight is actually the easy part. The hardest part about losing the weight is keeping it off. So mentally, when you lose that extra weight, those extra bad habits, you got to look at it from that perspective as well. The hardest part is to maintain that level of mentality, that level of physicality, to create a consistency, because the objective is not to reach a certain goal and shy away from it. The objective is to live the lifestyle. Personally, I was the type of person that I would be very discouraged when I achieve something. When I learned that I can achieve something, when I learned that I can do something, I am not as interested as I was when I first had that goal, or when I first had that want or that need. So what does that say about me? That I personally like challenges. I like the thrill of challenges. Something very small that I like that's a challenge is learning new things. That's exciting to me. The way that I have been able to combine the wants and needs, my wants and my needs are combined. I want my needs to happen. So that means I need my wants to happen as well, because they become one. I don't separate them, because then you have a split personality, or maybe you have two different things that you're interested in. Hey Jen, how you doing? I see ya. Mwah. Lady cooks her butt off, man. She does her thing, man. She's just a great person, and wonderful things are coming to you, Jen. Just stick with me and believe. Just like I said, you speak things into existence. If you speak negatively about anything, it lingers around you. You hear yourself. You are positioning yourself to lose if you continue to talk. And I'm not talking about anybody specifically. This is the way the world works. If you spew out negative energy, it should be because you're letting it go, not because you're bringing it into existence. Because you can remove something from yourself by speaking about it. You really can. But anyway, on to the positivity. So when it comes to being stubborn, they're afraid to change. They are afraid of something that's unknown. And afraid, of course, is another word for fear. So what do we need? We need some type of courage in order to remove ourselves from the stubbornness. But here's the key. If you remember what I first started talking about, there's a negative and a positive to everything. So let's start with the negative. Let's go with the negative of being stubborn. It's something that they call us forever. Since I was young, they used the word, you're so stubborn, you're so stubborn, you're so stubborn. Does it mean that they are correct or incorrect? At most times, now that I'm older, I can admit that when I was called stubborn, it was because I was displaying some type of resistance. So I was resisting some type of change. I was resisting some type of reason. And I didn't want to be wrong. There comes a point in your life when you're younger, and the more you resist something, even if something is good for you, the more difficult it is to come back from that. Yes, you have to flush your mental toilet. Thank you for the audience there. You have to flush your mental toilet. I will keep stressing this. I will keep stressing that you need to take time in between conversations, in between situations. Even if it's 30 seconds of usa, even if it's 30 seconds of meditation, even if it's 30 seconds of silence, and if playing music very loud does it for you, then utilize whatever it is that makes you feel better. But you got to understand that when you feel a certain way, it's going to affect the rest of the decisions and the confrontations that you have throughout the day. If you don't, the sooner you take care of it, the less you feel like a prisoner, the less you feel like you have shackles, the less you feel as though there's no way out. So understand that we are in control of the choice to be stubborn. And it is a choice. And I'm going to give you some examples of what I mean by that. Now let's switch the stubbornness to something positive. What if somebody is stern or stubborn about a good idea? What if somebody decides not to listen to everyone and decides to focus on what they truly believe, because their vision is their own vision? Have you ever been in a situation where you try to express something to someone or try to depict or give someone an idea and they look at you like you're crazy? That's happened to me all my life. Significant others, friends, siblings, parents, they all laugh at you. They all tell you that the things that you say are far-fetched. The things that you say are impossible to achieve. You start conforming and you reach a consensus with the people that you care about, and you start believing or disbelieving your visions yourself. Who are the number one culprits of the people that hold you back when you're trying to move forward, when you're trying to grow? The closest people to you, the people that you surround yourself, your immediate environment. Because remember, you're a product of your environment, but it starts in your own head. And then the people that surround you are the people that influence these things. If you start loving yourself like this program is intended to do, learning how to love yourself, you can learn how to live with people that may not be able to be in the same equilibrium as you are. I say equilibrium because equilibrium means balance. And balance for some is different. You have to, not everybody's the same. Some people can work in an unorganized situation or environment. Some people, like what Shakespeare said, there's a method to his madness. And it might look like madness to you the way people do things, and you might go crazy looking at this person. But if this person at the end of the day is successful, if this person gets the job done, you have to start looking at these things from a different perspective. Now, if the person is hurting themselves and other people in the process, then that might be something that you might want to lean on and talk about a little bit. You might want to mention that, especially if you care about this person. You're like, you're getting things done, but at the expense of hurting this person or that person. And yourself for that matter, because it causes separation, it causes conflict, it causes a lot of unnecessary headaches that you don't need. And that's what we need to do in order to grow. You know, just like your muscles, in order for your muscles to grow, you kind of have to beat them up. You have to rip them and tear them. And the growth does not come from the workout. You know, even though you feel pumped up when you're working out and your muscles, you know, your veins start coming out, that's the water that you're drinking. Your muscles might be activated. You might look really tight. But not even 24 hours after you come out of the gym, your muscles start deflating again. And it's not that they're disappearing. It's just that you're supposed to break your muscles down and tear the tissue area. And the recovery, that's where the protein comes in. The recovery is where you grow, because all you're doing is swelling up your muscles. Now, when you allow yourself to recover, now listen closely, this is the correlation between the mental and the physical aspect. When you allow yourself to recover physically, that's where the growth comes. So somewhere along the line, there's a hidden message there on the comparison between mental and physical. Sometimes you have to go through pain. Sometimes you have to go through tears, bumps and bruises before you grow. The point is to learn your lesson and not continue to take these bumps and bruises to create some sort of habit in the confines of something habitual, so that that becomes a part of your everyday lifestyle and not the positive things that I'm trying to ensue. So why do we fear change? Why do we fear change? We fear change because we don't know what's on the other side of that decision, because we're comfortable on where we at, because we are not comfortable being uncomfortable. I talk about this. There are a lot of things that I repeat, but these things are essential, and we will go different directions with that. I'm trying not to sound so excited about these topics, but these topics are very serious, and I need you to pay attention. If you're not at the moment, this is where things get a little bit tricky. No one likes to be forced to make changes. So you can't, being on the other side of someone who's stubborn is hard to deal with them, but it's not impossible. There is always a way to make someone feel comfortable so that they can talk, so that they can relate. When someone is at their most stubbornest mind, you can't penetrate them. And the more you talk about it, the further they go in distance as far as relating to the subject at hand. You have to focus on the strong points. You have to, at certain points, stubborn people may become emotional. They might lash out at you. They might attack you. They may feel like you're attacking them, so they get into a defensive mechanism. Again, it is not impossible. It is awfully difficult to deal with these people. So if you really care about someone, it's better to prepare yourself when you're going to deal with this type of individual. Prepare yourself as to the things that you will see that are natural, instead of barking back and biting back, because you're not helping someone if you're not ready to deal with the backlash that comes from dealing with someone who is at their most stubbornest state. I'm just reading a couple of points from the thing that I wrote. This is all part of the book that I'm writing. This is all part of the Live Above the Norm section. The P.S. I Love Me is the area where we teach ourselves how to love ourselves, how to put value in who we are and what we do, how not to conform to make someone else happy at our expense and to cheat us out of our own happiness. That's just not the way you do things. The ability, when someone is growing, and a stubborn person is a perfect example. When signs that a stubborn person is growing is when they start listening to reason. It is the pathway to growth is when you have the ability to change your mind. Some people are not in accordance with this, that in the middle of any heated sensation or argument, altercation, whatever the case may be, you can actually change your mind. Some people have the discipline to just walk away from a situation that you may not be able to see it that way before it happened. I have no way out. I have news for you. Just like what they teach you in martial arts or in boxing, they teach you how to fight to defend yourself. That is the initial goal of learning how to box or learning some mixed martial arts or any martial arts. They teach you that it's better to walk or run away from a situation and live another day than to stay there and play the hero. So why would you play the hero when it comes to being with someone who's difficult, that does not have the ability at that moment to deal with that at hand? They're not ready to give in. They're not ready to give up. They're not ready to look at things from a different perspective. You might have to try something a little bit more creative, lucrative, in order to get their attention. You might have to do something different because, again, what do they say about doing things over and over and over and expecting a different result? It's corny and it's cliche because it becomes redundant, but it is what it's supposed to be. Is there a fine line between being stubborn and stupidity? A lot of people say that you shouldn't use the word stupidity. You shouldn't use the word stupid. Well, if the word is in the dictionary, it was meant to be utilized. So as long as you're not using the word to disrespect someone, bring someone down, or devaluate, or do something to distract them, then you're in good shape. You're in a tremendous good shape. What else is part of growth? Part of growth is forgiving and forgetting. Some people get that mixed up. What does forgive mean? Forgive usually does not mean that you're forgiving the other person for them. You're forgiving someone for yourself. You're forgiving someone to release yourself from that stubborn feeling. You don't have to forget what people do to you, because that's brushing things under the rug or distracting yourself, whatever it is that you do to distract yourself from the things that you must take care of. Forgiveness is more about yourself. When you learn how to forgive someone, you don't hold grudges. Grudges is another sign of being stubborn. Grudges is another sign of not wanting to grow. I understand that there are some things that may be past forgivable. Are there some things that you will never forgive? It's quite possible, but you got to understand that you will be held prisoner to that until you are able to release that. And again, it's not about them. It is about what position you choose to stay under. It's very important that you understand this, because forgiving is a process of healing. When you forget things, you don't heal because they're still there. They come back up at the worst time. Like, you'll run into people you haven't seen in a long time, and something that you've just put in the back burner or something that you just totally move forward from, they will bring that back up. And you will find yourself remembering something that you didn't want to remember and whatever else was attached to it. But let's hope that your theory works, or your methodology of doing things works, so that every time these situations come where your past is brought up by someone that you haven't seen in a while, you're able to deal with it better. You're able to learn a little bit more from that experience, instead of it being something that just shatters you and just automatically pricks you and makes you feel so uncomfortable. Kind of encourage yourself to go into it from a different perspective now that you're older, now that you're more conscious, now that you're more aware, your awareness is heightened, now that you understand energy, you understand levels, you understand motivation, drive, thrust, whether you're doing too much or not enough. These are all subjects, and these are things that we have covered here in the show, and we will continue to cover them. It is not a one-time thing to just go and at something and not bring it back up. Use these things as examples. Yeah, resentment. Resentment is something else. It's all part of the same thing. Resent, grudge, stubbornness, don't want to grow from this. Again, speaking from experience, everyone's level of difficulty, level of acceptance is different. Level of tolerance is different. Should you work on your level of tolerance? Is that something that will make things easier for you to get through the day? Don't mistake enlarging what you tolerate for consensus with things that you don't agree with. You can't confuse these two things. You have to look at these things from a different perspective. I'm going to hold a grudge. I've held grudges against my family members. I've held grudges against my friends. And I've realized that I look for consensus. I look for reasons to uphold my position. I look for reasons to continue to be that way instead of reasons to get out of that. I was ignorant to the prisoner's dilemma that I was keeping myself in by not allowing myself to discuss things, by not giving people an opportunity to discuss how they feel, by undervaluing what they feel and putting myself on a pedestal. If you're in a relationship, and that's one of the topics that we're going to be talking about coming soon, that's going to be a doozy, I'll tell you what. When it comes to relationships, if you don't respect yourself, if you have self-doubt, then how you're going to have problems with caring, loving, trusting, believing with someone else. Because you yourself know what you're capable of. And when the situation is similar to something that you've done before, you're going to automatically think that your partner or the person that you're talking to is capable of doing the same things that you're capable of doing. And it's just because you are capable, just because you know that you're capable, just because you believe that this is something that you would or wouldn't do, you tend to put everyone else in the same frame of mind as yourself. And that's a very selfish way of looking at things. It is a very heavy extra weight to carry when you're worried about what the next person is doing or not doing based on what you would or wouldn't do. You have to understand that everybody's different. Yes, there's a lot of similarities. Even people that you grow up with and spend time with, even a twin, may do something a little different, may have a different perspective. Again, you're a product of your environment. And even if twins have been exposed to the same exact situation, they still have a difference of opinion. They still have a different mindset. They still have a different approach. Now, there are people that sound the same. You know, when you're in a relationship for a long time, they say you start looking like your partner or your pet. Maybe you start practicing the faces that they do. Maybe they start practicing the faces that you do. I have no idea what that's about. But I have seen owners of pets, and I must say that they start looking like their pet or vice versa. And yes, couples start not looking like each other, but it becomes an individual package. It becomes iconic in a set. Like, in other words, you can't see one without the other. So what those two people represent, that one thing that they represent, that's the aura, that's the energy, that's the feel, that's what they give. That's just my perspective. Because physically, I'm going to be honest with you, I've seen people that they start looking like each other. But I also believe that it's looking at them so much and them spending so much time together that when you see them alone, it's weird. And you feel uncomfortable talking to them because they don't have the other half or the other person that they walk around with. It's really weird. So we have to make conscious decisions not to have vengeful thoughts. Vengeful thoughts create resentment. They create grudges. It starts taking a toll on you. And when you're thinking about doing something negatively to someone else, you're creating extra weight. Because you're creating conflict, you're creating drama. Not to say that the other person did or didn't deserve what you're doing, but you don't deserve to sit there and twiddle your thumbs and get stuck in a situation that you don't know how to handle because you're still wishing that it didn't happen. You're still sitting there wishing that it didn't happen. You're coming up with scenarios on what should have happened. But what you should be doing is trying to understand where this came from. What you should be doing is taking a moment to try to understand things from a different point of view. I'm not saying that you should accept it. I'm not saying that you should agree with it. I'm just saying that that is not the time to make a decision unless you are stern and stubborn about, and you've given fair warning, hey, if you continue to do this, this is what's going to end up happening. People keep calling your bluff until you actually make a move. And when you do, then that becomes yet another situation. So look at the two sides of being stubborn. Be stubborn about positive things. Don't let anybody move you. Don't let anybody push you. Don't let anybody lead you in the wrong direction. If you're a person who likes to fact check, don't let anybody tell you that it's disrespectful or wrong. Try not to do it in front of people's faces when they're talking to you, but take a moment to look up the things. We spoke about that before. Fact check things. You have every right to fact check everything in your life. Just don't do it in an unclassy and a provoking manner. Today I was being interviewed by a psychiatrist. His name is Dr. Dan. I'm going to be on his podcast soon. I was very excited about this. I still am. I know I'm not showing the ultimate excitement because I'm very serious about the things that I'm talking about today. These are personal issues that I dealt with myself. And when I speak about these things, it's not that I don't have the experience. This is something that I went through myself, and I know how tough these things really are. I use myself as an example. And one of my mottos is let's grow together. Let's kick life's butt together. Because it's better to hear it from someone who's going through it, so that you can get the actual feel of what's going on. I'm still growing. I'm always going to grow. I'm never going to be perfect. That doesn't mean that it's going to stop my interest in going that direction. I have understand that I'm never going to be perfect. I'm never going to know everything. But I want to learn as much as possible so that I can help the people around me, my kids, people I care about, people that care about me. Knowledge is 100% power. You can stop someone from making mistakes, and you can encourage someone to do the right thing. And it's not taking shortcuts, because there's a difference between taking shortcuts and doing things right. If you consider doing things right a shortcut, then so be it. But I guarantee you that if you do things right, it's a shorter process because you don't have to deal with the aftermath. You don't have to deal with all the things that come from. Remember, we spoke about this, the extra. When you spit out extra, when you say extra things, when you put things that don't belong there, you create extra turmoil. I don't know how many times I'm going to explain this, but I'm going to continue to explain this to people. When you're doing too much, you're putting extra in a situation where it doesn't belong. If you speak from the side of your mouth, if you always have a closing argument, if you have something to say, you got to understand that these, especially after a consensus was reached, you don't always have to have the last word. You don't have to say something from the side of your mouth. It's disgusting. It causes extra problems. It causes things that shouldn't be there. So now you have to unravel and deal with this. Think about this if you've ever seen this in the movies. When someone reaches a consensus and they make an agreement, you okay with that? I'm okay with that. And then while they're walking away, somebody said something, and then the person stops in their tracks. And then you, as the audience member, you go, oh my God, why? Why they couldn't just let it go, let it walk away? It's a good and a bad thing to that. When somebody says something extra, when somebody does something extra, says a slick remark, or wants to have the last word, that means that they are not 100% ready to grow. That means that they are not 100% agreeing with you. That means that they have some type of reservation. They're not 100%. Now, there is a possibility that that person is releasing their last vent, and they might say something that they wanted to say. And there are people on this earth that do not have the discipline to stop themselves and erase something. They feel like everything that was recorded in their brain, that they recorded themselves saying, that they have to say it. Well, let me explain something to you. The people that grow in this world are the people that stop themselves from saying something that's not necessary. It starts out with when you're having a conversation and somebody says something and they start talking and they just stop and they go, what were you saying? No, don't worry about it. No, please, you already started. Why not bring it up? No, this is when you become stubborn. This is when you become positively stubborn and say, you know what? I'm going to risk you getting a little upset because I didn't finish my thought. as opposed to sharing a thought that will engage in something that's meaningless, something that is irrelevant to the subject matter. There's a possibility that when you're starting to speak and say something to someone, that you catch yourself right in the middle of it. Don't finish the sentence. If you're not 100% sure that what you're saying is beneficial, it's going to help the situation, try to stop yourself even in the middle of it, because that's you're progressing towards stopping your look. The first thing you do is you notice when you say something extra after you said it. The second thing is when you stop yourself before you finish, and then you stop yourself closer to when you to the beginning, the first couple of words, and then you just you make noises like because you want to say something, but you got to hold yourself back because you know it's not the right time and place, and it's not going to help at all until you get to a point where you don't make any noises. You don't even move your face. You're just so stiff when people talk to you, and you're just nodding your head. You know, you're just nodding your head. I've said this before. When somebody comes to you and they want to talk to you, nowadays you got to ask them, is this a venting session or is this something that you need my opinion? When you do that, you give someone an option, they end up wanting your opinion anyway, because they come to vent, and you might think it's selfish when somebody comes to vent and they don't listen to you and you have an ear for them. But there's a time and place for everything. Not everything needs an opinion. And I'm a firm believer that when you learn how to do something right, excuse me, when you learn how to do something right, or focus on doing things the way things were meant to be, and then you add a twist to it, then you make it your own. Because there are things in this life that do not need alterations. There are things in this life, if it's not broken, why fix it? I can understand that you can try to enhance something and make something better, but you don't try to fix something that's not broken. That is the wrong course of action. If you are fixing things, it's because you might be uncomfortable with this. Understand this. You might be uncomfortable. Here's a little test so you can see for yourself if you are not comfortable with something uncomfortable, or if you are selfish, or maybe another way of looking at it is if you live by a different set of standards, that you expect things from people that you're not willing to share or do yourself. Here's a nice test. Ask yourself, whenever you ask someone to act a certain way, do you do that? Are you giving people advice that you don't follow? Pay attention on how you give someone advice, because if they know you and you try to explain something to them and tell them how when you're speaking to someone, you're kind of saying what you would do in that situation. It doesn't necessarily mean that, but that's how it comes off and represents to people. So be very careful if you're the one that's giving someone advice and you're not doing it. It's like the pot calling the kettle black. It's like you're getting on someone and you're complaining about something that you do yourself. You're giving people advice, yet you're not taking your own advice. It doesn't carry the same weight when you're not doing it yourself. Not to say that you can't learn something from anyone, because you can learn something from an enemy. But you got to understand that you have to be a representation of the things that you're spitting out. If you're giving advice, think about this. If you're giving advice about things that you're not following, most people will look at you if there's something wrong with you. And they're not going to take you seriously. I'm sorry, that's almost like an obese person giving someone advice on how to work out, or how to make, how to work out, because we talked about the lifestyle change. Anybody can lose weight, but what do we need to talk about? Maintaining things, creating a consistency. It's not about losing weight. We all know how to lose weight. We eat less and we sweat. You don't want to eat less or change your diet? Then you need to work out more. Now, if you're eating a lot of crazy stuff and you're not working out, then double trouble. Be prepared to suffer and live a long life, or maybe even a short life of pain and misery, because that's only going in one direction, and that's a definite. So understand these things. Would you go to a bald barber for advice? Would you go to a skinny chef for advice? Would you go to a corny person or a person who's not funny for a comedy experience? You know where to go in order to get what you need. So why is it that you don't have these cabinets and these folders inside of your head organized? If you know exactly what it is that you need, and you know exactly what you want, you have to start filling these voids, because what you're doing is living vicariously through other people, and you're enjoying their spotlight. Or if you're a highly critical person, or a person that likes to be prejudicial, or a complainer, or someone that has not nice things to say to someone, that could be the way that they're dealing with their insecurities as well. So understand that people have a lot to say, and if you don't fit the part, not to say that you can't give good advice, because you can give good advice, but it just sounds and feels better from someone that's either been there, going through it, or has took the time to understand the moving parts of any situation. Take that and think about that. Think about this. When it comes to forgive and forget, the first person that apologizes is the bravest person. Courage comes from apologizing, letting things go, being sorry, letting go of the things that are holding you from performing, not just with that situation or with that person, but it affects everything. The way you shop, the way you use the bathroom, the way you write a letter, the way you text, the way you respond to someone, your attitude at work. When you hold on to grudges and you hold on to things, then what you're doing is holding on to the emotion, and you're not allowing yourself to repair. You're not allowing yourself to grow. With growth comes repair. With growth comes supporting yourself and being around the people that will not enable you in a negative way, but that will help you push further and enable you to live a positive and righteous life. You have to find closure, and you have to move on. I let go of a lot of grudges, and it felt great. I apologize for a lot of the things that I have done. I have forgiven people for what they have done to me and to others that I care about. And I didn't forget it. It's there, and it's ready and available in my file cabinet, so that if this is a repetitious act, you can see the signs before they actually happen. There's, a lot of people talk about flags, but it's not just about red flags. There are green flags also. Remember, here we talk about both sides of the spectrum. The negative, if there's a negative in something, then there's a positive as well. Because you can't just have something that's one-dimensional. And I challenge anyone to bring something up that's negative that cannot be changed into positive. If there's nothing positive about something that happened, there's always something positive in every situation that you do. There's always a brighter side to it. The grass is always greener on the other side. We got about 15 minutes left. We're going to keep covering this area because this is very important. Now, the first person to apologize is the bravest. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Understand that everybody that apologizes is not looking for forgiveness. Sometimes they're saying sorry because they want to let whatever it is that they're holding let go. They're not interested in your apology. They're interested in whatever it is that keeps them immobile. Be careful with the people that apologize. Ask them what they're apologizing for if you're not content with their apology. Hold them accountable for violating your standards. But understand that the standards that you live and are governed by, if they come from your beliefs, if they come from you, and you're not living that, then that makes you full of it. That makes you contradictory to your own belief. If you're not following your own self, then how is it that you expect other people to respect that about you? Stop giving advice about things that you're not following, because it makes you look very ignorant. It does. It makes it even more difficult Remember that the majority of the people that you run into are not going to come at you unbiased. They don't know how to flush them out the toilet before they come to you. So they're coming to you with whatever the day brings. They're coming to you with whatever package has come from that day, that week, that month, that year, depending on how long they hold on to things. You got to understand that when people come out of pocket or they talk to you left or right, if you just stay quiet, they might recognize, because they're looking for a fight. And as long as you don't engage with these people at the wrong terms or in the wrong subject matter, you're in good shape, because you allow themselves to see what's actually happening. Once you engage, it's too late. Now this becomes a competitiveness. This becomes an argument. There's no turning back from that. So let's rewind. The first person to apologize is the bravest. So if you want to get into something competitive, why don't do a positive competition? I'm going to be the first one to apologize. And then the other person will say, no, I'm going to be the first one. And then that might turn into an argument, but the argument is different because you're arguing over who apologizes first. And you're going to do what it takes to prove yourself right. So when the next time comes, you're looking for it. You're looking to be sorry. But be careful that you don't fall under doing things a little bit sideways on purpose so that you could have a reason to apologize. Because another uncomfortable thing with someone is when they apologize for no reason whatsoever, because it sounds condescending. It sounds like you're being sarcastic. So when you do say sorry to someone, please remember to explain why and what they're being sorry about. Don't take it for granted, because obviously if you don't explain it, they're going to think that you're sorry about whatever just happened. But you don't know what's going on in that person's mind. You don't know how many things they're thinking about. They might not just be thinking about that particular incident. They could be thinking about their exes. They could think about their family members and who hurt them. They could be thinking about past situations. So just because you deal with things and things come easy to you, do not expect that from everybody else. Play fair and understand that we are all individuals. The first to forgive is the strongest. The first to apologize is the bravest. They have the most courage. But the first person to actually forgive is the strongest of the two or the three or whoever is involved with this. And let's do this again. If you are the first to apologize, then you are the bravest. If you are the first to forgive, then that makes you the stronger one. Yes. Just because you forgive someone doesn't make you weak. What you need to do is make sure that you draw lines and do not allow people to cross those lines ever again. And you stand up to your standards. Again, sometimes we're in a relationship where we need each other for different reasons. It could be monetary. It could be like financial. It could be situation. It could be it's in your best interest to do this because you got a lot more to lose if you go on your own. There's a lot of reasons why people hook up, especially in the winter. It gets a little chilly and you want someone to snuggle up with. Once the summer comes, then it's right back out the door and back to the original status. I understand that 100%. So the first to apologize is the bravest. And the first to forgive is the strongest. But the first to forget is the happiest. Let's do that again. The first to apologize is the bravest. The first to forgive is the strongest. But the first to forget is the happiest. Because when you forget and you move forward and you forgive, you're not tied down. You're not shackled. It doesn't make you. You're not confined to that. You're not controlled by this. You're not living up to the standards that people perceive or expect. You're a little obtuse. You're not predictable. Because when you're predictable and you do something different, then you make people uncomfortable with your unpredictability. But you have every right to do things differently so that you don't feel mundane, so that you don't feel you're in a repetitive situation, where you're reciprocating instead of just accepting, where you do things for no reason. You're doing things because you don't expect nothing to come back from it. These things come back, but they don't come back in the same form that you give forth. If you're the type of person that does things in a way Like, let's say you're the type of person that you give people money. You can't expect them to give you money because they're the ones who need money. You're giving them the money because usually they need it. So if a person is needy for money, you have to allow them to pay you back in different ways. You can't expect money from them because you're setting false expectations. They already have money problems. If they had money, they wouldn't be coming to you, or you wouldn't notice these things. Allow people to barter. Allow people to give you things back that are not in the same. That's why I don't agree with the glass is half full, the glass is empty. And I've said this many times before. You have to have a lot of different glasses. And when you're in a relationship with someone, they help you fill those voids. Some of my glasses are filled to the top. Some of my glasses are down to the bottom. And some of them are midway. You can come in to this buffet of situations, into this buffet of literacy and this knowledge that I have. And you can start filling in the gaps. Do I need you to be just like me? No, because we're going to end up in the same spot. I need you to be different. I need you to be somebody that can offer me something that can fill each other's glasses. If we're both doing the same things, then we just have an overload of the same thing. We need some diversity. We need some variety in our lives. They say that opposites attract. They say that you have to be with the same person that you are. I don't know what the key is. I have never met anyone like me, and I don't want to meet anyone like me. It was hard enough to try to control and to be in a situation where I can see myself for what I really am. Let alone, you got to understand that when you're talking to someone and they're talking about their past, you don't use their past against them. You use their past to try to understand them and help them move forward. Because if you use it against them, you make them feel worse. And they will never forgive themselves. How do you love yourself when you have a person that you care about telling you that you should stay stuck thinking about the same thing over and over and over? Do yourself the service and help your partner rise from the situation. Stop utilizing their past against them to keep them in that state of mind to control them. Allow them to grow further, and they will appreciate and remember that you were there, or the one or part of the reason why they got out of a situation that seemed impossible. This is a green flag for you. This is an opportunity for you to get involved with some and help them overcome something. And think about it this way. If you overcame that in the past and it was easy for you, do not expect that from the person. Don't expect this person to look at things easy the way you look at things, because there are things that they do that are easy to them that you might not even try. So let's be fair about how we do things on earth or in a relationship. So there's leverage to this. There's leverage to knowledge. The more you know, the better it is in a situation. The more you are familiar with something, the less fear that you have. Most of the things that we fear are things that we never tried. Most of the anxieties we have are things that will never happen. Some expectations we still holding on to expectations, like expecting someone or wishing that someone acts or says something, that's an assumption. Sometimes you have to plant that seed. Sometimes you have to do what's called reverse psychology, where you do something different. But the whole point of a good conversation is to make someone feel comfortable. When I'm talking with someone, I try not to talk down to them. And I'm talking physically. If someone is sitting down, I'll sit down so that we can look at each other eye level. Because when you tower or you look over someone and you look down at them, they feel intimidated. They feel like they're in a disciplinary situation. It's defensive before they become open. If you can immediately make somebody feel comfortable by telling them something that they've never heard before, or by letting them know, I'm not here to judge you. Let me know how you feel. That right there will tell you that almost 99% of the problems that we go through are self-inflicted. Almost half of the things that we go through, if not more, don't even exist. A lot of things that we talk about are hypothetical situations. That's part of anxiety. When you start becoming timid, when you start feeling those needle points, when you're in a situation like dun 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 dun, that's anxiety. Dun 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 dun. And then now you have to be anxious about being anxious. Think about this. Who wants to be anxious about being anxious? So you're anxious before you're anxious, or you're anxious predicting that you will be anxious. So what you're doing is speaking anxiety into existence instead of saying, I'm not going to let this do this to me. I'm not doing this today. That's when you grow. This is the opposite of growth, is removing something, right? Well, in this case, you can grow by removing things, because these are the things that are holding you down. If you have someone that's growing and is a teenager, they tell them not to lift weights when they're young because it stumps their growth. The extra weight that you're carrying may stump your growth. So wait until you're ready to accept this extra weight, when you have the knowledge, the skills, the training, and the practice to have this. Put yourself in the best position possible at all times. That doesn't mean be slick and think about you and you only, or you first mentality, because that's part of the entitlement that's going on so much in this world that we live in right now. We got about 3 minutes left. Just want a quick couple of points. When you're obstinate, which is the same thing as being stubborn, no matter what persuasion, no matter how somebody persuades you to do so, when you're obstinate, that's the toughest stubborn. You're not going to move your position. Especially the harder you try to move someone that's stubborn, the more difficult and the more resistance they're going to show you. But if you can trick them somehow, and this is a positive way of tricking someone into telling them that you'll never change your mind about that. You don't have the capability. You don't have the skills to look at things in a different perspective. And then you mention the word happy, you catch their attention. How you expect to be happy if you don't look at things from a different perspective? Are you honestly telling me that by being stern about how you feel without looking at a reason or reasonable doubt, or things that favor someone else's opinion or someone's thought, are you honestly going to tell me that you're never going to change your mind about this? I'll give you an example. Laws change all the time. Marijuana is now legal in many states. I myself said back in the day, in the 80s, that one day marijuana will be legal. So how do we deal with this situation? Now that it is legal, can people still complain about it? If it's legal? If it affects them, yes. Some people do not like the smells. The smell of marijuana sometimes gets people sick. Sometimes they're not used to it. It reminds them of the old school mentality. For whatever the reason is, they have that right to be protected over smells that they don't want to smell. Like if you live in an apartment building and someone smokes marijuana, it's all over the hallway. It might get on your clothes. You don't want to smell that way. You don't want your apartment to smell that way. But you got to understand that it is legal and you are now allowed to smoke marijuana in your house. Should we have the responsibility and the moral, the ethical thing to do to try to find a way to keep the smell from going into the hallway? Because the hallway is where you both occupy the same space, so you have to coexist. You can keep the smell in your house. It's your business. But understand the things that affect other people. And this is how we're going to wrap it up today. We spoke about a couple of good subjects today. We spoke about the most important thing that we spoke about is being stubborn. Now, it's not going to take 1 little hour session to get this done. Stubborn is an ongoing process. It's going to take a little bit of reading. It's going to take a little bit of practice. It's going to try to be around people that are trying to change, because you can help each other dominate this and get the discipline and the courage necessary in order to fight these things that some people call demons, these obstacles that we ourselves put in our own way. Let's stop being ignorant about ourselves. Let's learn about ourselves. Let's learn what triggers us. Let's stop putting ourselves in situations that doesn't bring out the best in us. Let's do everything that we can to pass this forward. You may not be able to change the world, but if you're one person that changes, it makes a difference, because you could be leading by example. And there are people that are watching you. If you have kids, if you live with your parents, and people are looking at you, at what you do and what you don't do, pay attention to these things. Be careful. Be responsible with what you say and what you do, because it affects everyone. So with that being said, this is the close of another great show. My name is Omega. This is the PS I Love Me show. PS stands for what does PS stand for? Problem solving. I apologize for that. But this is Omega Enterprises and LMC Radio, where loyalty means everything, bringing you this special show for people that want to learn how to love themselves. So with that being said, I'm going to leave you with those thoughts. I appreciate you all, and love is love. Have a good day, everybody.